Imagine a world that seems to go on forever. A vast, flat plain stretching further than your eyes can see, covered in a thick carpet of grass. This was the Great Steppe, an immense corridor of land connecting Eastern Europe to the heart of Asia. For centuries, this was a world defined not by walls or borders, but by the endless sky above and the waving grass below. The seasons here were harsh and unforgiving. Winters brought biting winds and deep, freezing snow that covered everything in a blanket of white. Summers could be fiercely hot with the sun beating down on the open plains, turning the lush green to a dusty gold. This was a challenging place to live, a landscape that demanded constant movement and adaptation from anyone who dared to call it home. This enormous sea of grass was not empty, however. It was a dynamic ecosystem, teeming with life. Great herds of wild animals roamed across the plains. The landscape was crisscrossed by rivers that snaked their way through the grasslands. For the people who lived here, understanding this environment was not just a skill, it was the key to survival itself, a place where the horizon was not an endpoint, but an invitation to keep moving, exploring, and thriving in this incredible sea of grass. At the very heart of nomadic life on the steppe was the horse. These animals were much more than just a means of transport. They were partners, companions, and the key to mastering the vast distances of the grasslands. Nomads learned to ride almost as soon as they could walk, becoming some of the most skilled horse riders the world has ever known. A nomad on horseback could cover immense distances, manage large herds of livestock, and hunt swiftly across the plains. Life on the move required a special kind of home, one that could be packed up and rebuilt with ease. This was the yurt, a marvel of nomadic engineering. Made from a circular wooden lattice frame and covered in thick layers of felt, the yurt was perfectly suited to the steppe environment. It was light enough to be transported by pack animals but strong enough to withstand the fierce winds and cold temperatures. Inside, the yurt was a cozy and organized space, with a central fire for cooking and warmth. The daily routine of a nomadic family was tied directly to their animals and the seasons. Women would milk the sheep and mares while men would check on the animals, guiding them to new pastures. The rhythm of nomadic life was one of constant motion, a dance between people, animals, and the vast open landscape. For a very long time, historians believed that the peoples of the steppe were only ever wanderers, living their entire lives in the saddle and the yurt. However, fascinating discoveries have completely changed this picture. Around the 3rd century BCE, a remarkable transformation began to take place in certain parts of the Great Steppe. Some nomadic groups, particularly powerful ones like the Xiongnu, started to build permanent settlements. This was a huge shift in thinking. Instead of always moving, they began to create fixed points on the landscape. These weren't just small camps, they were the beginnings of towns and cities, built not of stone, but of the very earth beneath their feet. These early steppe cities were often built in strategic locations, such as fertile river valleys where farming was possible, or at the crossroads of important travel routes. A key archaeological site that tells this story is Ivolga, a fortified Xiongnu settlement in what is now southern Siberia. Here, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of dozens of houses. These homes were not yurts, but sturdy, semi-underground dwellings built with walls of packed earth and mud brick. Inside, they had sophisticated heating systems, with channels running under the floor to circulate warm air from a central hearth. The people living in these new settlements didn't completely abandon their nomadic traditions, but alongside the animal bones, archaeologists have found grinding stones, iron sickles, and storage pits filled with millet grains. This combination of herding and farming, of a mobile tradition and a settled life, was a major innovation for the people of the steppe. At the same time that cities were beginning to appear on the steppe, another powerful force was reshaping the ancient world, the Silk Road. This was not a single road but a vast network of trade routes that connected China in the east with the Mediterranean world in the west. And right in the middle of it all was the Great Steppe. The nomadic peoples, with their expert knowledge of the landscape and their mastery of transport with horses and camels, became the essential connectors along these routes. They were the guides, the guards, and the merchants who made this long-distance trade possible, moving precious goods across thousands of miles of challenging terrain. The flow of goods along the Silk Road was truly staggering. From China came luxurious silk, a fabric so prized in the West that it was worth its weight in gold. In the other direction, caravans carried Roman glass, woolen textiles, gold, and silver. But it wasn't just luxury items that moved along these routes. Ideas, technologies, religions and cultures. Buddhism spread from India into Central Asia and China. The cities needed the nomads, they needed their animals for transport. In return, the nomads desired goods they could not produce themselves, such as grain from the farmers, metal tools, weapons from the blacksmiths. The wealth generated from controlling trade routes allowed steppe leaders to build even larger and more powerful states. It was here, in this endless sea of grass, that nomads not only built cities, but also helped build the connections that shaped the ancient world.